And now, James Shea, Director of Public Safety in Jersey City, New Jersey. Welcome, sir. Thank you very much for joining me. Could you give us an update on what's exactly going on in Jersey City?
Well, in Jersey City right now, of course, we're facing the twin challenges of managing the coronavirus and managing the protests that are occurring due to the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We had a fairly major protest yesterday leading from one of our parks to one of our police precincts, but it went peacefully, and we're expecting another one today at 4 p.m., and we hope that goes peacefully as well.
President Trump ordered the military to be deployed in the certain areas to help control the riots. Isn't it a bit too much?
I'm not going to get involved in politics, but I would be surprised. I can't remember the last time that the military was utilized in anything other than a rescue. Probably, I guess, Los Angeles in the 90s, maybe. But I would be surprised to see the military used. Police departments and the National Guard are very well-trained and well-equipped to handle this type of thing. Again, it has been a challenging environment that I have not seen in my 30 years in policing in the United States, where they are trying to balance on a razor's edge people's right to protest and to express their pain and their frustration with criminal elements taking advantage of that. So it's a tough road, but the police in the United States are well-equipped and are excellent at their job. And now that it is clearly swung into criminality overtaking the protest, I think you'll see the citizens and the protesters supporting the police stopping that.
You come from a long line of law enforcement people. Your brother is the current chief of the NYPD. What do you say to those who say that police officers are racist?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of things that in the United States are coming to the front now between social media and between the fact that we are more willing to confront them, I think, than in the past. So a lot of painful things are being dealt with right now as far as relationships between the races, relationships between the police and different racial groups, how African Americans have been historically disadvantaged in the United States. So when those conversations start happening, painful things come up. And when you have an event like the event that happened in Minneapolis, which has been condemned by every police professional and every police officer I know, the actions of the officers there, their failure to provide care to that man, their actions over the course of about 8 minutes where he died literally while he was in their custody and their care, and they did nothing to seemingly prevent it. Those actions are going to cause pain and frustration among many of our citizens. And in the United States, the way that's expressed is through protest. There's an absolute right to assemble here. It's protected in our Constitution. And then people can assemble and protest. Unfortunately, we have seen, and this has happened in the past, protests attract people who are attracted to the anarchy of the protest as opposed to the original cause. And I believe that's what we're seeing now, where many of them seem to have been taken over by outright criminality.
Do you recall the last time cities in the U.S. were put on curfew?
Well, yeah, I mean, 1943, we're going back a long way to find the last time that New York had to be under a curfew, thank God. But we have had civil unrest since then. Incidents have occurred. The community, sometimes government wasn't listening to its citizens. Sometimes the community overreacted to something that happened. And the thing, we generally get together and work it out. However, now Jersey City is not under a curfew. We are, we believe, managing this with our citizens and our neighbors very well. New York City had to be placed under a curfew. But again, I believe that the evidence will show that that's because the protests themselves have been supplanted by outright criminality, by criminal gangs and elements that are using the protests as cover to commit crimes in New York City. And that has to be stopped. And curfews is just one method that they're using to do that.
What can be done to calm things down at this stage?
Yeah, well, I believe that everybody involved in the protests is starting to see how the protests have been corrupted. We're seeing a lot of incidents of people, protesters, challenging people within the protests if they see them beginning to engage in violent or criminal behavior. Yesterday in Jersey City, we had a protest and we managed it together, the protest organizers and the police, managing together to ensure that nobody caused undue harm to anybody else. And the protesters were allowed to get their message across, again, without it being corrupted by criminals or by people who are just attracted to violence and anarchy. So I believe we're going to see more of that. And the police are going to have to step up their enforcement, and they're going to have to put an end to the criminal activity that is going on. And the police departments across the United States know how to do that very well. They've just been doing it in a very challenging environment of trying to protect the protesters and their right to protest at the same time. It's very difficult, but it will be done.
We see some who are trying to focus rage on the Jewish communities in some parts of the country. How can you assure them?
Oh, absolutely. Every police executive and every security person in the United States understands that. You know, we here in Jersey City, just back in December, had an attack on our Jewish community by an active shooter that resulted in one of our police officers and 3 of our citizens being killed. The Jewish community, unfortunately, has a history of being victimized sometimes in these riots. The Crown Heights riots in New York when I was there back in the early 90s. So there is a memory among the Jewish community of people victimizing or scapegoating them in times like this. But all of our police officers, especially in New York, in Jersey City, in places with large Jewish communities, Los Angeles, all of us are aware of that and work very closely on security issues with the Jewish community to ensure that they're protected and that they understand they're protected. So again, while I understand those fears and we all are right there with them, I do believe that that is well covered also.
Director James Shea, Head of Public Safety in Jersey City, New Jersey, thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you, and thank you to all of our friends in Israel who I know are thinking about us. And stay safe also, Alexander. It's a strange world out there these days. Thank you.